Hello and welcome to today's Bitrix24 webinar HR Toolkit. Thank you very much for joining today. Okay, so first of all, we'll just go through some introductions. So my name's Sam Connor. I'm sales manager here at Interface. We're Bitrix24 Gold partners, and we're based in the UK, the US, and Hong Kong. And what we do is we offer a full range of services to assist you with Bitrix24. So starting off with pre-sale support, so we can really help you to evaluate Bitrix, see if the system can manage your most critical requirements, first of all. So we can help you through that evaluation process. And if Bitrix is the right product for what you're trying to achieve, we can then help with the full implementation of the Bitrix24 system. So we can design it exactly how you need it to work. We can then, once it's set up, we can provide training and ongoing support to ensure you get the most possible value out of the Bitrix24 system. And there's two editions of Bitrix. There's the cloud and there's the self-hosted, also essentially a private cloud instance. And if you are interested in self-hosting, we can provide our hosting service for you if you don't have the resources internally to manage a private cloud instance. Okay, so before we go and deep dive into the HR features of Bitrix24 today, if you're here to evaluate Bitrix and get some essentially more information about what Bitrix24 is, essentially it is a collaboration suite of well in excess now of 40 different tools that you can use to help you to manage your business. And there are over 12 million businesses now around the world that use the Bitrix24 system. And as I briefly mentioned, the system, it's available in two different editions, okay? So we have the Bitrix24 cloud system, and we have the Bitrix24 self-hosted edition, also called the on-premise. Essentially, that is a private cloud instance of Bitrix24. So you can host that on your own local server, private cloud, or we can provide you with our hosting service. And in terms of pricing, so prices start from approximately $49 per month if you're looking at a cloud system. That starts on the basic cloud tier. Or if you're looking at a self-hosted system, starting with the Business 50 package, that would be priced at $3,590 for the first 12 months. And then in year 2, and ongoing annually, you would pay a renewal fee, which is approximately 25% of the original license fee. Okay. Okay, so today's webinar is HR Toolkit. So we're going to be essentially going into a deep dive to look at the HR features available within the Bitrix24 system. And it's important to mention with this, whereas say with the CRM system, where it's essentially an entire module within Bitrix, with the HR features in Bitrix, essentially they're spread around several different modules inside the system. So we'll take a look at all of those different modules today. But it's important to actually understand why we should use Bitrix24 for our HR needs. So first of all, it's a really valuable tool for easily being able to find employees' information and a centralized area for storing that employee data. You can manage work time, personal areas, for example, for managing contracts and sharing those contracts with specific people in the organization. So as an employee kind of database, it's a very powerful tool. But then we also have self-service forms. So you can manage approval requests, such as absence requests, expenses, it could be purchase requests. You can design your own workflows inside the Bitrix24 system. And then you'll have custom processes that we can create, such as onboarding new employees into the organization. And then on top of all that, Bitrix started off as an intranet system. So it has really powerful internal communication channels that you can then communicate with your teams wherever they are around the world. Okay, so we'll take a look at those features in today's HR toolkit. But first of all, so here are some of the core areas of the Bitrix24 HR features. So first of all, let's take a look at the profile and company structure. So if we go into our Bitrix24 system, what we'll do first of all is let's go into our employee profile. Okay, so we've logged into our Bitrix system. Now, as we go through today's session, I will point out if you need to have a certain tier of license to be able to access the functionality that we're talking about. Okay. So first of all, we can see in the top right-hand corner here, this is the login area. So I can see who is currently logged into the Bitrix24 system. So I can see online right now we have Max and we have Mark. And each user inside the system has their own profile page. So inside here, I can click on my profile. And then inside here, I can see all of the details here on the right-hand side to deal with my personal page. So I can hide information. I can create custom fields to maybe capture specific information that I want to share amongst my colleagues. So inside here, we've got some very standardized information, but also, for example, here we've got skill sets. Okay, so I might want to tag what my skills are. And you'll see later on, that can be very useful for, let's say, new starters who are wanting to maybe find specific person within the business who has that skill set. For example, payroll. If you're a new starter, you need to know who is associated with the payroll, so you know you can ask them about any pay-related questions, which can be quite important when you're onboarding into a business. So we'll see how we can then use the data from inside the profile page to roll up and find specific people across the organization. And then further down here, we also have some additional information about my subordinates and my supervisors. So that can all be linked in from the company structure. And then we can also have shortcuts at the top here to different areas of the Bitrix24 system. So for example, here I might want to drill down to all my tasks, for example. So I can drill down to my task area directly through my profile page. Or I might want to go into my drive area and see all of my documents as well, for example. So this is a really useful area to drill down or see my calendar from your profile page. I can quickly integrate into the core modules of my Bitrix24 system. And as we see here on the demo site, we've got an avatar on here, but that could be a real picture of yourself. And then all of your colleagues can have real images on the system. So if maybe your business is spread around, people are working remotely or across the world, it gives you that internal bond here by being able to add your image into here and then communicate through the system. Okay, so that is a look at the individual profile here. But then let's go into the employee database. And inside here, this is where we can then build out our company structure. Okay, so this is really important because this company structure can then be used in many different areas of the Bitrix24 system. So first of all, when we're running approval workflows, we could use this structure, for example. So let's say anyone in the accounts department here, so as we can see, Lucy, if they have an approval, that could go to John Smith, who is head of the accounts team, for example. Or if we are using the CRM system, we could set permissions based on the departments that users have access to. So this is not just a case of kind of as a visual aid. This aspect of the company structure is used in many different areas of the Bitrix24 system. And as we add our departments, so you can add users to those departments, you can add substructures. So if you wanted to actually add multiple connected departments, like here, for example, inside the sales area, we've got a cold call team underpinned in the company XYZ, and you can add users to multiple departments inside this system as well. Okay, so let's look at the company structure. And then moving on from there, we can go into the employee database here. So essentially, this is where we can see all of the information about our employees. So this is like your employee repository where we've got all of the breakdown of details about our employees. And what's useful here is, as an administrator, I can turn on and turn off different fields. So this is pulling in the data from the user's profile page. So I can turn that information off. Maybe I don't want to know when their end date is, for example. So I could turn that off. Or maybe I do want to know what skill sets each person has. So I could show this information inside the system here. So I can see their start dates now. I can see all the skill traits. And I can easily drill down into any of this data using free text search, or on any fields where we've got information stored, you can also filter through this information. So, for example, I might want to, as we mentioned earlier on, just see the people who have the skill set as the payroll skill. And I can drill down into that information like so. So I can now know Max is the person who is running payroll, so I can now speak to them directly through here. Or maybe if I want to speak with a certain employee, I could drill down, find their profile here, and then I can go into here and then start an instant chat with Mark directly through the system. Or I could set up a video call or a voice call. So you can set up those communication logs with each individual user. You can do public chats as well. So you might want to do a department chat, or you can, when we have a look at projects as well, you can do a project chat in the system as well. Okay, so that is a look at the individual employee page, and also then how we can build up the employee database using the company structure and customizing the UI here of the employee database, essentially, so we can pull information from our profile pages. So this is a really nice high-level overview of the business, essentially. So if you're a new starter, you could use this information to work your way around the business and meet those new people who you are connected with. Now, as we go through today's webinar, if you have any questions, please do add them into the question box on Zoom or on LinkedIn, and we can run through those during the intervals today. One other area to mention here, I've shown how you can search inside the employee database. You could also search in the universal search area here. So that would then pull up the employee as well inside the universal search. And it will also show any communications that have taken place with that employee, so I can drill down to that information. Okay, so that is a look at the profile and company structure. So moving on from there, next we can look at time management and reporting. So what we can do inside Bitrix, and this feature can be turned on or turned off, by the way, is we can record our working day inside the Bitrix24 system. So you can see at the top here, there is a clock. So what you can do inside here is you could turn this on so we could record our working day in the system. And this was a question that we've had come in previously on LinkedIn. So I just want to show you how you can turn this on, because as standard, we can turn this feature off. So right now, I'm not clocking in for my working day. So if I go to the employee section, if I go to time and reports inside here and go to the work time area. So for different users, if you want to, or for the whole teams, I can turn on or turn off that work time management feature here. So I can then save that inside the system. And then what we're able to do is if we refresh, then I can clock in and clock out. So I can see right now I need to record my time for yesterday. So I can add my time into the system. Let's say if I finish late, for example, I can mark that on the system here. So essentially you can build out a report for each working day. So you can add your clock in time, your clock out time, and record that time in the system. And then I can now clock in for my new working day. Okay, so that information is now going to be recorded in the system. And you have this work time chart here. So you can see at a very high level now, every single time that is logged inside the system for each user. So here we can see when they clock in, when they clock out. You can also record the break period as well. So that time for the break is saved. And then we have the total hours that the user has worked. And we could ask them to fill in a report as well. So for example, here, this user actually had to alter their time clock. So we're asking for a reason why. It's because they finished late, so they had to amend their clock out time. So you can have a full report for every single user inside the system here. And what you can also do is set schedules. So if we go into here, for example, if we wanted to add a schedule, maybe if we have staff who work specific times, we could actually add that as a schedule into the system here. So we could choose when that schedule is being applied for, and I can select the employees who are going to be working that specific schedule, or it could be a certain department, maybe like a call center team. And then I can choose that time inside the system here. So let's say if it's from 8:30 until, let's say, 5:30. So I can add that into the system here. I'm going to say they can have 1 hour for break. And then that is their schedule that will be applied to the system. And what we can do is we can track violations here. So let's say, for example, if they are maybe clocking in or clocking out at specific time parameters, then we could be very strict with this. So we may say, for example, that the user has to have clocked in by 8:35, for example. And if they haven't, so we're giving them a 5-minute window there, we could send notifications to, let's say, it could be everyone in, say, the accounts team, for example, or specific people, so they can then be made aware about that. So you can use these features here to ensure your staff are working as scheduled for the system, and make sure if there's any errors here, then your team are notified at the correct time, so you can then start making amendments to that working day. Okay, so that is a look at our work time for the whole working day. What we can also do, though, is we can go more granular, and you can actually record time on individual tasks. So within the Bitrix system, we have a project management area and task management area, so you can manage all the tasks that you are associated with. And within each task, what you can do is you can record time. So inside here, you've got a time tracker tool, so you can record time inside the system. Or it could be, let's say, if you maybe forgot to record that time on the task, you can manually come into here and add that time into the system as well. Okay, so let's say, for example, if I'm working on the plane, didn't have internet access, so I'm going to record that time manually now. So that time can also be recorded inside the system as well. So you have the ability to, at a high level, using the workday time parameter tool, so we're logging all of our working day, or we could go more granular and record the work on each individual task that we are working on. Okay, so that is a look there at the time features. And if you wanted to as well, if we just go back into the employee section, question that gets asked quite a lot is around if a user can clock in also on the mobile app, and they can do. But if you wanted to actually customize this, and what we can do inside here is when we are setting the schedules, essentially, for our employees, you might want to turn this off. So where the user can clock in and clock out, is it on the browser, is it on the mobile app? You could turn off the ability to do that on the mobile app, as an example. Okay, moving on then. Some of the really popular HR features are your personal drive areas. So inside Bitrix, each user has their own personal drive space. So inside here, we can add our documents or connect with external drives. So you have your own document repository area here. But what's really useful with this feature is we can set access permissions. So it could be, for example, if I've worked on a document, I want to give access to certain staff, for example. So it could be maybe all of the HR department who need access to this, and I'm going to give them read access to that document. So you can control the permission structure throughout all of the documents that you store inside the Bitrix system. And we also have a feature called Bitrix Docs. So essentially, this is an online document collaboration feature. So on here, you can edit documents live through the Bitrix24 system. So it's a really nice way to engage with your colleagues that are on the Bitrix24 system, and then you can manage your working documents essentially through this system here, very similar to other types of documents. So that's their loading the new document that we can then start to edit through the Bitrix24 system. Okay, and then we can save that document inside here, or we might want to put edit permissions on. So we might want to add other users onto the document who we want to be able to share this with, and we're going to say give them full edit rights, so they can then come into the document and start working on the document as well. So it's a really, really nice feature available through the drive area there. And then we also have the company drive. So essentially, this is your company repository. So you could add all of the different folders for the departments within the organization. And then again, what we can do is we can set access rights. So let's say all the telephone recorded calls that we can see inside here, well, you might want to put permissions on those as well. So again, we might just say only administrators and anyone in the sales team for example, can access that folder. So you can set that permission structure inside here as well. Okay, so let's look at the drive area. Also have the calendar, and it works in a very similar way. So you have your own personal calendar where you can manage all of your events and meetings from across your maybe CRM or projects. So you can see here, I've got a daily Scrum meeting because we do Scrum within the Bitrix24 system. And you can synchronize your calendars with external calendars as well. So you've got that two-way connection. And then we also have the company calendar. So inside here, you can have company-wide events and activities saved inside the system here. So you've got all of that data synced. So not just the drive area, you can store your organization's events and meetings through the calendar workspace as well. Okay, so that's a look there at some of the other very powerful features within the system. So recording time, storing information and documents, collaborating on documents, and looking at there, adding meetings and events to our calendars. But another really powerful area within Bitrix, kind of a core area, is employee engagement. Okay, so Bitrix, as I mentioned at the start, it formed as an intranet system to start with. So coming back to its kind of core, it is as an internet system to collaborate and share information amongst different departments within the Bitrix24 system. And this is where the feed comes into play. So the feed area here is essentially your personalized newsfeed board. So inside here, what we can do is we can see anything you're associated with, any comments, and maybe you're assigned a task or someone sends you an approval, that will sync into your own personalized feed area here. And within the feed, you can send out messages. So let's say if I want to say great work to the sales team, I can then choose the audience for that message. And that message would then go out to everyone within the sales team that are on the company structure. So I mentioned at the start how the company structure is used across the system. That post will now go out to everyone within that sales team. Okay. So say, for example, if we come into the system here as another user, this is their feed here. So it's very different in terms of what information is shown. But then what they're able to do is they can add their own likes. They can add their own comments back. Okay, so it's very interactive. For every post that comes into the feed, people can communicate back through the system there. And then I can see that information. So Mark has just messaged on this post, and as I'm associated to this post, it's now been added to the feed. Okay, and within here as well, we can set up events. So you could maybe add a new event into this system here. So let's say for the Christmas party, and let's choose a date for this. And then we can add the relevant people who are going to be coming to the event as well. And let's then save that inside the system here. So you can add those events to the system as well. And those will then get added to the calendar as well. So that's something to bear in mind. When you're adding events here, this all gets connected inside the system. So we're adding those events that will then be added into the calendars that you are using, hopefully within the Bitrix24 system. Okay. So what we'll do now is that's an event inside the system. And now if we go to our, sorry, if we just reload this. We go back into the feed section here. Then some other types of engagements that we could set up are, let's say, a poll, for example. So let's say if I wanted to pick what date for the Xmas party. So I'm going to send this to every employee in the business. And then we could say Friday 10, Saturday 11th. Okay, so we're making this very interactive here. So I'm going to post this message out. And so everyone can vote essentially based on a question that we're asking. So I'm going to say vote for Friday. And if we go to Mark's profile here, then again, let's have Mark vote. So he's going to go for Friday as well. So we can see two people have voted for Friday. And again, as I mentioned, you can add your own likes and comments back onto here. So it becomes a really interactive system here. It's not just a case of posting messages. As you can see here, you can make it as interactive as you need. And just some of the types of posts that we could do through here. One is an appreciation. Okay, so let's say, for example, here, I'm going to send this to Mark, but I want all employees to be actually sent the message to make them aware that Mark's done a great job. And we can choose a badge for Mark here. So let's choose a star and post that message out. And then one other type of message I'll show you in a second, that badge, it's almost like a recognition, essentially, showing someone's done a good piece of work, which is really important. So especially if you're maybe working in different offices, being able to show that appreciation is really important for engagement and keeping essentially your employees motivated. And then another type of post we could do is an announcement. So let's say if there's a critical message, I'm going to again send this to all employees. Okay, so we're going to send this out and pin this to the top for 1 week. And now let's take a look at how those two posts look like on another user's feed. So if we go into here, so first of all, we can see that announcement of the appreciation, which is really nice. And then the announcement here, you can see with an announcement, it's very different in the sense of you can mark here that you have read the message. So if it's fundamentally critical, you can force the user to mark they've read that message. And then we can see that inside the system here. So it's a really powerful way to ensure people have read and understood a message. So rather than having to have endless email chains, you can see here the different types of ways you can engage with your employees. There's a huge number of ways you can do that through Bitrix. And then one other thing to mention is the company pulse. So the company pulse can really help to show you how teams are engaging in your Bitrix24 system. So I can see here, say if I look over the last year, this shows you who's engaged more often than most in the Bitrix24 system. And we can see which areas of Bitrix24 they're using. So I can see right now, the mobile app is really being underutilized, for example. So then we can maybe have some conversations with the team, get them to start using the app in more detail. And then we can also filter on individual users. So I can see which areas different employees are using. So I say if I look at Mark, I can see Mark is using the like feature more than anything, not really using the mobile app or the drive area. So we can then have conversations in some meetings to get them to engage on different areas of the Bitrix system. So these are some really nice high-level reporting tools that we can use inside the system. Okay, so that is a look there at some of the key areas of the Bitrix24 system. Next, we're going to move on to the self-service forms and processes, but let's just see if there are any other questions that have come in on Zoom or LinkedIn. Okay, so question there, where do the badges go for appreciation? So that's a really good question. So if we go back into the system here, let's go into Mark's profile, because inside here, if we go to the user's profile page here, then what you can see is all of those appreciations are added inside the system here. So I can see that last appreciation that we added, you can click into each individual one. You can see all of the communications that have taken place on those appreciations. So it's a really nice way to engage with your staff through the system. Okay, so moving on now, we're going to look at self-service forms. So essentially, self-service forms allow you to create your own personalized workflows inside the Bitrix24 system. So we'll see, first of all, how you can manage an absence request through Bitrix24. And essentially, this can be completely customized. So if we, inside a user's profile here, so if we go to the More section and open up the workflow area, this shows the different workflows that are available through the feed section. And again, that can be customized. So you might only want to show certain workflows or more workflows, you can customize that. But then let's say if I want to open up the request leave form, That's now opened up a form that we need to fill in. So let's now fill in this information. So if I want to have some time off in December, then I need to put my reason. Okay. So this form here that we're filling in the dates, the reason, etc., the type of absence. Now, this form can be customized. If you wanted other information to be inputted, maybe not everything needs to be mandatory like we have here, you can customize that. Okay, so it's completely customizable to your workflow preferences. Okay, so I can now see that request has gone to a manager to either approve or reject. So if we now go back into the manager's profile, we can see that automation there. So I can go into the automation section or in the feed, and I can see all of those different approvals that are waiting for me to action. Okay, so I can see, first of all, there's an expense request. So I can see all the details. So that's okay, that one. And now I can see this annual leave. So I can see 14th to the 15th, so 2 days of holiday. What I could do is I could go into the employee section and go into the time and reports area and actually go into the absence chart. So I can actually see the absences across the organization. So different types from annual leave, business trips, unpaid leave. You can see all of this information inside the Bitrix system here. So I can see the one thing, the 14th and 15th off. There's nobody else off in the business. So I'm going to approve that request for Mark. So that's now going to be approved. And if we go back into the employee absence chart here, we can see that that new request has been added into the system there. And if we go back to Mark's profile and we can update this, that will now have been added into Mark's profile page. Okay, so we can see that's now been added into the system here. Now, if you are on a self-hosted edition of Bitrix24, we can essentially extend the functionality of the leave approval process. So what we can do with our absence management plugin is you can actually add entitlements for each user. So whereas we've just seen that workflow take place, if you wanted to be able to add entitlements so each user has a certain number of holidays per year, we can add that functionality with that absence management module. And in addition, with that plugin, we can then show the annual leave inside the user's profile. So I can see the entitlements here. I can see what's available, what's pending, how many days I have left. And I could also cancel any pending leave that's not been completed yet. I could cancel that request through the system. So it's a really powerful additional step up to the standard leave approval process in Bitrix. So if you want to be able to add leave entitlements for each user, then we have that functionality with our absence management plugin, which is available for the self-hosted edition of Bitrix. Okay, so that is a look at the workflow feature there. And if I just go into the back end here of the directory, I just want to show you how that workflow essentially works inside the system. So if we go to our leave approval, and then if we go into the process here, this is what we call the business process designer tool. And this is what we call a sequential business process, because we have a start point and then we have an end point, and the workflow goes from top to bottom. So within here, what we have are all of the action blocks. So first of all, we requested that annual leave, and it then went to the supervisor here who either had to approve or reject that leave. And then based on this condition here, we then go down a certain chain of the workflow. So for example, we approved that one. So then it got added to the absence chart, which we saw, and the person was notified. But if it was rejected, then we go down this right-hand side, and all you would have is the notified requested that the leave has been denied. So that's how that workflow would work. But you could completely customize this action block. You can add additional conditions. We could add tasks into here. So you can use the variables on the right-hand side to completely customize how that workflow works. And that's where our team here at Interface can help to set up that workflow. Okay, so that's a look at the leave approval. Just another type of workflow that, for example, you could run inside here is, let's say it could be a new project, for example. So rather than having to set up all of the different tasks for a project, what we could do is set this up as an automated workflow. So let's add the details about the project. So we have the manager, and we have another role here for the designer who's going to be designing out the webinar here. And let's add the deadline for when this project is going to be completed. Okay, so we're designing out the December webinar. This is the project. So we've got the tasks to set up the webinar. So you can see here we have two different types of projects, a project A or project B. Based on this condition here, that will then formulate and automate the creation of specific tasks that need to be completed. So you can see here how using conditions, you can completely customize what data gets created from a workflow that you are running. So let's save that information. Okay, so that's now triggered the workflow. So we just need to, as we were set up as the manager for this project, so we just need to approve this project. And then we're going to bring in specific people automatically to the project based on that project type, and specific tasks will be set up as well. So if we go into the project area now, we can see, and I'll just search for it here. If we go to December, the December webinar project has automatically now been set up. It's brought in specific people who are going to be working on the project. And if we go to the task area here, you can see the different tasks now that are automatically set up. So rather than having to manually set these tasks up, using the workflow designer tool, it will bring the correct people, create the correct tasks, and save a huge amount of time, and also prevent human error as well. Okay, so that is a look at projects. And one of the type of workflow is a different type. So from using the business process designer tool, you could also use robotic process automation. So robotic process automation is slightly different. Essentially, what you do here is you create the stages for progressing a workflow. And then within the workflow, we set up automation rules to streamline and move information along the workflow at the correct time. So for example, here we've got an employee onboarding workflow. So we can see all the different stages that we go through to manage the onboarding of the employee. We can see all of the information about the employee and can go into each profile here and see a breakdown of all of the different elements of the onboarding of this user. So you have the entire history saved inside the system here. So if I want to onboard a new employee, let's say if I want to add that user into the system here. Okay, so we can add that annual allowance. So this is all completely customizable. So with all this information, you can just customize how the data is set up. So for the fields that you want to capture. So we can add the information. So it's a freelancer, so we know their start and end dates. And you can see as soon as that information has been inputted, it's moved it to the HR team. So that's been assigned to HR, who will be notified, who then need to work on this. And then if I try to progress it any further, it won't let me because the HR team have not completed their specific elements of the onboarding. So you can send it to the correct department with the correct person at the correct time and ensure each element of the workflow is completed before we can progress it any further. So you don't miss any important aspects within the workflow tool. Okay, so that is an overview of our robotic process automation tool. And that brings us to an end. It's a summary of our HR Toolkit webinar today. So seeing how we can set up a profile and company structure, how we can create time management features for recording our working time, and also individual task time on tasks. We have that personal drive area to store all of our important documents and also share that information amongst specific people within our departments. And we've seen quite heavily the employee engagement. So from posting out messages, sending appreciation, sending out critical announcements, huge variety of ways, in also instant chat with your colleagues through the system. We then have those self-service forms, such as absence requests or project setups, and then the robotic process automation tool. So you can see huge number of different ways you can use HR features within Bitrix24. Now, if you have any questions or if you need help to set those up, we have tailored packages to help you to build out these areas of the Bitrix24 system. So you can contact our team, sales@interface.com. And here's a selection of up-and-coming webinars. So you can go to interface.com/webinars, and we can set up that webinar with you so you can register and join us on those webinars. And we're here every other Tuesday at 10 a.m. Eastern time. So I hope you can join us for our up-and-coming webinars in the near future. Okay, well, thank you very much for your time today. Hope you've enjoyed today's HR Toolkit webinar, and I look forward to seeing you all again in the near future. Bye for now.